Are you ready for round 4 of our Whiskey of the Year bracket? Let's dive in. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Bourbon Hutch, and thanks so much for joining me on this journey through the world of whiskey. So this is round 4 of our Whiskey of the Year tournament for 2024. If you haven't been following along, we've had 3 rounds before this point. We broke down our top 16 whiskeys of the year into 4 separate groups of 4. We're blinding all of those, coming out with one winner, and then ultimately the final 4 whiskeys that make it and advance will go head-to-head in a final blind matchup. This is our last round of the first series, picking our winner that will go into the final 4. This is round 4. So let me introduce you to the contenders. First, we've got Barrell Bourbon Batch 36, a very complex blend that has impressed me since it came out pretty early in the year. Then we've got one of my favorite lines in all of whiskey, Michter's 10 Rye from 2024. Michter's 10 in 2023 did very well in my Whiskey of the Year bracket. This is a clear favorite, and we'll see how it holds up to the rest. We've got a newer bottle to the collection, one that I only have one representative of, and that is Stagg. This is batch 24B, and it's really knocked my socks off since I've been able to taste it. Really interested to see. This will be the first time it's ever in a blind matchup for me, so gonna be fantastic to see how it turns out. And then we've got Bomberger's, another Michter's product that is one of the more complex and interesting sort of experimental lines that they do. Really interested to see how that stands out in a blind matchup in particular. So those are the contenders. We're just going to keep this video rolling, keep it quick, and go right into the blind. Okay, one jump cut later, we're ready to dive in. I've mixed these up. I do know the bottles, but I have no idea what the order is. These have been opening up for about 5 to 10 minutes. We'll dive in on the nose first. We'll call this glass A, all the way on your left, my right, and then we'll work our way down to glass D. But we'll start on the nose. Yeah, this has a freshness to it. Citrus pop, a little bit. Sugary. Lemon zest. Some oak, but a lighter, brighter kind of oak. It's definitely jumping out of the glass with that freshness. Citrus pop, vanilla, strong vanilla note here. It's beautiful. It doesn't feel super high proof, but it feels inviting. Sugary, citrusy, fresh. All right, we'll go in on glass B on the nose. Ooh, very different. Chocolatey, oaky, but in a different way, more of a dark barrel oakiness. A little bit of punch to it, some ethanol. Brown sugar. There's a cherry effervescence to this one as well. Vanilla, a little darker vanilla than maybe glass A, but definitely a darker oak, slightly denser experience overall on glass B. All right, let's go to the glass C on the nose here. This is definitely a little bit more subtle than glass B in particular, probably more than glass A too. I've got to dig a little deeper. There's a brown sugar core to it. Maybe a slight citrus pop, but more in like a orange zest direction. Darker cherry. Slight strain of vanilla. But like I said, I feel like that one might need a little more time to open up, but it's not jumping out of the glass as much, but it's got some nice brown sugar core to it. All right, And then last but not least, glass D on the nose. Wow. A little bit of a spicy oakiness to this one. Yeah. More barrel. I can feel the woody nature trying to poke through. Vanilla. Maybe an apple fruitiness. Stewed apple kind of fruitiness to it. It's a dense whiskey as well, kind of like glass B. So very interesting how these kind of jump to different directions, with glass A being that kind of fresh, poppy nose, glass B and D having more density. And then I would say glass C, ooh. Yeah, definitely that like citrus vanilla pop to it, but a little more nuanced. Okay, let's go into the palate. That's where we'll get a lot more information. In terms of leaning some direction on the nose, I think it's glass A, B, and D are kind of all competing there. I might like glass A the best just because it's the most unique, but glass B is pretty dang good. In any case, let's go into glass A on the palate. Again, we'll get a lot more information here. Cheers. Well, that is delicious. I mean, these are all contenders for Whiskey of the Year, so they're gonna be great, but man, caramel and creme brulee power to this one, a toasted sugar, slight marshmallow experience. But then it's got this citrusy, little bit of a lemon, strong, light, bright vanilla, and then an oakiness, giving it some backbone. It really unfolds. A little bit of spice and heat start to roll out in the back and into the finish, but it's very desserty and decadent, so a delicious one to start out. Okay, let's move on to glass B on the palate. Cheers. Again, delicious oak, spicy oak, chocolate, cherry, almost like a chocolate covered cherry experience on this one. Heat, I feel like this one has more proof to it, more robust power compared to glass A, although glass A certainly had staying power in terms of the flavor sticking around. But this one just has a spicier core to it. But really good. I think the chocolate, cherry, and spicy oak are really the main features here. All right, let's move on to glass C. Now, glass C had the most nuanced nose. So just to revisit that. Okay, more vanilla and oak are coming through now. Enjoying that. All right, cheers. Okay. That's sweeter than I was anticipating. More of a vanilla, orange, almost like a little bit of a creamsicle thing going on. A little chocolate even. But it's really the vanilla, I think, that's giving it that extra sweetness. It had a spice up front, but then tapered down into that longer, sweet finish. Some cherry. But yeah, a sweet profile, brown sugar, cherry, orange, vanilla. It's a complex kind of pour. It has some heat to it at the center. Probably closer in proof, I think, in my mind, to glass B. But a little bit more subtle and nuanced. But I'm really enjoying that sweetness. Okay, let's move on to glass D. So glass D has an interesting, inviting nose too. Let's go into the palate. Okay. So for me, glass D is probably the most similar to glass C. Sweet, vanilla, mostly a vanilla pop to it. Some oak. A little bit of spiciness, but it really did, again, kind of temper down into that Nice vanilla sweetness. Sort of drawing those wood sugars. I can kind of feel that essence to it. Doesn't have as much staying power maybe as I would like it to. That one feels like it's spicy on the back end. I can feel the heat. Again, maybe a little bit higher proof, but it didn't quite have the flavor punch on the finish as some of these others. It'll be interesting to track how that goes as we dive in more. So what I'm gonna do now is go in reverse order. I always do that for myself. Then I'll A/B test and kind of come up with my definitive list here, my definitive order, and reveal the winner. We'll fast forward through all of that, and then I'll give you guys a recap, and we'll just talk about the order and the winner. Let's do it. All right, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. Hopefully that was pretty quick for you. For me, it was kind of a journey to go back through and test these against each other. As we go through our order, I'll talk to you about how things have developed here. But let's talk about the order. So in fourth place for me tonight was Glass D. I think this one has a really nice sweetness, vanilla, maybe a little orange pop to it. Honey, I feel like honey kind of came through as I sipped on it more. Ultimately though, it was a little more muddled and not as distinctive as some of these others. Very good whiskey though. Let's see what it was. Okay. That's Barrell batch 36. So for around 90 bucks, pretty readily available in most places. A very, very good pour. Mix of basically 7.5 to 15-year-old whiskey. It's great. I do think the fact that this is a blended whiskey just made it a little more muddled. It didn't jump out of the glass as much for me, especially on the palate. Okay, so in third place for me tonight, sort of a similar story. Complex, but maybe lacking a little bit more of a distinctive power, was Glass C. Beautiful, a little bit darker and oakier than Glass D, but again had that sort of similar slight downfall of being a little more muddled compared to the other two. And this, again, the caveat is we're comparing it to some of the best whiskeys of the year, so sometimes certain things shine through and other ones fall a little flat, but that doesn't mean it's not great whiskey. So what was this one? Okay. That's the Bombergers. I had a suspicion these two were fighting for that kind of spot of more blended, a little bit more going on, very complex, but maybe lacking a little distinctive character. The Bombergers in particular has more of an oaky thing going on. I think they use chinkapin oak as part of the aging process here, and you can really detect that, which is cool. But the other two tonight were certainly a little bit of a step above. So that means we've got the Stagg and we've got the Michters fighting for supremacy here. This was the closest battle. Both of these are delightful. Both of them are delicious. Both of them are jumping out of the glass and giving you pretty much anything you could ask for from a very good whiskey. So in a sense, it really comes down to personal preference. Like, what did I enjoy more tonight? For me, the winner, which will also reveal second place, was Glass A, which means Glass B comes in second. Let's talk about Glass B for a second, just second place. This thing has this cherry cola effervescence oak power to it, and then Glass A has this fresh creme brulee, a little bit of citrus and fruit, wonderful unfolding experience. So we'll just reveal second place here. What was it? Makes sense. Stagg batch 24B, and then that means our winner advancing to the final four is Michter's 10 Rye. Now, since this is a rye, it did stand out a little bit among the crowd. I tried not to let that influence my decision, and this was a pretty close battle. I really love both of these bottles. I think they're both exceptional. The reason the Michter's Rye took it is just that the distinctive character, the freshness, the creme brulee, especially for something that's like 92 proof. I don't know how Michter's does it, but they just pack so much flavor into these 10-year-old ryes. And the bourbon is pretty good. But this Stagg, it's my only Stagg that I own, and I'm glad that I do because it's awesome stuff. It's powerful on the nose, it's rich on the palate, and it has staying power. I just think the Michter's, the way it's so decadent and desserty, and the creme brulee kind of just experience ryes for a long time, it's hard to beat. So, Michter's will be advancing, but if you can get the Stagg, and I bought this for around 60 bucks, that is quite the value. All right, that's gonna do it, guys. That's gonna be our last round before the final four. If you haven't been following along, definitely check out the other videos in the series, but to kind of set up what we're looking forward to in the final matchup, it's gonna be this Michter's 10 Rye, making it into the final four. Then we've also got Russell's Reserve 15-year, Old Fitzgerald 13-year, and Maker's Mark Cellar Aged from 2024. It's gonna be a heavy hitter battle. It's gonna be awesome, so stay tuned for that coming soon. Let me know in the comments below, have you tasted any of these four offerings, and what did you think? How did they place for you this year in terms of some of the best stuff you've tasted? While you're at it, hit the like button on this video, gets it out to the most people, and then certainly join us for the final video of the series. And then last but not least, biggest favor to ask is, if you haven't subscribed to the Bourbon Hutch already, please do. Please join us for the rest of 2025. Going to be a lot of great content coming your way. Till I see you guys again for another video, all I can say is keep drinking good whiskey and cheers.